Hi everyone, I'd like to welcome you to Red Dead Redemption 2. Today I'm going to be playing dominoes. I'm playing draw, heads up. I'm going to go through an entire game I played against this opponent here. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to offer some general tips and as well as general thinking on my strategy here. First off, let's start with the basics. And that is target score is 60. And there are two ways to get points at the end of a round, or two ways you can win. Let's take a look at those. The first way you can win is to simply domino first and get rid of all your dominoes. Your opponent will have to keep track of how many pips or points they have, and you get all the points they have. Sometimes you can get a lot of points, sometimes not so much. And we're going to see that at the end of this game. The second way you can win is if it goes to a showdown where both players have drawn everything they can out of that boneyard, and neither player can make a move. In that case, the scenario number 2, the least pips or points wins. The player with the least amount of pips wins if both players cannot move. So you can have 27 points. But if your opponent has 28 points or 28 pips, you win the round and get 28 points. Conversely, if your opponent had 26 points and you have 27 points, your opponent's going to get 27 points from you, and you're going to get 0 points. Now let's say it goes to a draw and you both have 15 points. Well, then nobody gets points, so it's a tie. So that's the two ways you can win. If you can see right here, I just scored 19 points. So I'm ahead. I'm going to put that graphic on the screen just a second here, just to show you what I got. Let's go ahead and recap what happened in round number 1. And there were two ways I could win the round. And I won by dominoing first, or way number 1. In that scenario, I got all 4 of my opponent's tiles to count as points, and that goes toward my target score of 60. In this case, my opponent had a total of 19 points. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that there's a double 0 on my opponent's as one of my opponent's holdings. So you can win a round, and if your opponent has a double 0, you don't get any points. Just something to keep in mind. So sometimes you can win the round and not get very many points. But, you know, it is preferred to losing the round and giving your opponent points. Because let's say I gave my opponent 5 or 10 points that round, and they gave me nothing. That's a 30-point swing. So it's important to, you know, figure out ways to win the round. And we're going to look at that in just a minute here. All right. I'm going to talk about some basic concepts here that I generally play by unless I absolutely know what my opponent has and what's in the boneyard. Don't get into that situation a lot, but sometimes I do actually go through and count, and we'll take a look at that later on as well. The first concept here is generally try to get rid of the highest pip tiles or the highest point tiles. That's generally speaking. You know, make a move that gets rid of the most amount of points, because, you know, you don't want to give your opponent a bunch of points in showdown. And if you get rid of a bunch of points, let's say your opponent does win, they're not going to get a lot of points. And, you know, it lowers the probability of you losing if it did go to showdown. So, yes, in short, generally speaking, try to get rid of the highest pip tiles. Now, there's two scenarios where I would deviate from that. And the first is a concept I'm going to show in a little more detail later on, is that you want to try to keep your options open There's only 2 numbers you can do, or 2 moves you can make per turn. So you want to make sure you have, 2 available slots so you can make a move no matter what your opponent does. Otherwise, you could be doing a lot of drawing, and drawing tiles is not good because that increases the probability of our opponent winning, and, you could go to a showdown where you both can't move, and then it comes down to whoever has the lowest number of points wins. Whoever has the highest number of points is usually in a big heap of trouble. So, yeah, if you look at this holdings I have in front of me right now, I'm in a tight spot. I've got a few moves lined up strategically, but if they make 1 or 2 moves, I could be in trouble. I think I've got a monopoly on a couple of numbers there. But yeah, that's you want to try to keep your options open. That would be one way you would deviate from the general concept of getting rid of the highest pip tiles. Another is considering when you're considering blocking. If you know what your opponent has, and we'll look at that in a little more detail, because there's 7 of each number. If you know what your opponent has, or you can narrow it down, you may want to consider blocking where they can't make a move and you can. And oh, look at here, we just Domino. Let's see how many points we got. Got a few points. It looks like we got 6 points total, but hey, that's better than nothing. It's better than giving them 6 points, because if we'd given them 6 points instead of being ahead 25-0, we'd be ahead 19-6. So, good start here. So, back to the concepts thing. You want to consider blocking if you know what your opponent's holdings are or can narrow that down. And we need to do some looking around and determine how you can do that. Let's go back to the original part of the concept, and let's get rid of your highest pip total. This may not be the strongest example, but here is where I deviate from getting rid of the one with the highest number of pips. If we went by the highest number of pips, that would be this 5-5. That would be worth 10 points. Why don't I do that? Well, there's only one option. If our opponent didn't move, would be the 5-0, because there's 2 5s out there. I only have one option, and that's one of the reasons I'm not going to play that there. Although I do want to get rid of this because it's worth some points, but I'd like to keep my options open early. So what I ended up doing is getting rid of something that didn't have a lot of points. I could have also played 4-2. I ended up getting rid of the 4-1. I could have also played the 4-2 as well. And the reason I got rid of that is, okay, if you look at the 4 and a 1, no matter what our opponent does, we have options. If, there's a 4, if the 1 is played, we have the 4 here, and we have the 4-3. So we have the 4-2 and the 4-3 available. Now, if, for example, instead our opponent plays the 4, and, we have the 1 option, which would be the 1-2, and we also potentially could have a different number open. We don't know what that different number our opponent is going to play, but we want to, at least leave ourselves with 2 options, so no matter what our opponent does, we have a move for our second move, and we can start reducing this pile.
What? No.
Now, if you'll notice on the actual game board, I've been forced to draw quite a bit the last few turns, and I'm in a little bit of a tight spot here, although my opponent is forced to draw. I hope this doesn't go to showdown right now. I want to get rid of as many points as possible. Unfortunately, I'm only being able to move the small moves here. Let's see if I get something good. Oh, that's a really good one for me. 4-6. Now I can play the double 6s there and hopefully get rid of those points before my opponent dominates. All right, the good news for us here is that our opponent does not have 2 numbers. How do I know that? Well, I counted them. So let's say there's 1 5, 2 5s, 3 4, 5, 6, and 7 in our hand. We account for the last 3 of the 7 5s, so we have all the 5s. So if there's a 5 in the end, our opponent can't do anything about it. We also have all the remaining 6s. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the board, and 1, 2 in our hand. So if we can get it down to 5s and 6s and block our opponent, there's nothing our opponent can do. Now, unfortunately, in this case, our opponent had the 0-0, which is worth nothing. So we still have 25 points. But let's again look at the bright side. We could have been stuck with a ton of points there. We were able to creatively engineer our way out of that. And, having a tie is much better than giving up, 10, 15, 20 points where our opponent is right back in it. All right, let's get back to our concepts here. And let's get rid of the highest pip one first. So why am I getting rid of the 6-5 instead of the 5-5, which probably would have more lanes? Simple. I think my opponent is going to play one of their 6s, which their opponent does, and it has a 3 by it. This opens up a ton of lanes for me. Every 3, every 5 is available. And now I've got both 5s on the outside. They play a 0. I still have the 5-5 option, which I seriously consider tackling. I'm going to do that to get rid of those points and keep my other 5 options open. My opponent plays a 6. I've got the 5-2 and the 5-4. I'm going to play the 5-2 here because I want to keep the 2 option open and hope my opponent plays 6 something. Unfortunately, my opponent plays a 2-3, but fortunately here I have a 3 to play. And yeah, that is part of the concept behind play there. My opponent played a number with a 4, so I get lucky, and now there's a 5 and a 6. They're drawing. I'm really hoping for a 2 and a 1 and get the showdown right away. May not go that way, but that's what I'm hoping for. And my opponent is drawing, so that's good for me unless I have to draw. And it looks like I got a little bit of bad luck there. Had it set up good. Tried it, but couldn't quite execute there. We've got the 6-4. We're going to play it there. And now my opponent is going to play 4-4. Wow. I really, really was hoping for something good. I did get a 1 on the edge. Let's see what my opponent plays. Oh, no. They played the 1. Oh, they played the double 1. Cool. I can domino here and pick up some points. Let's see what we got here.
Guess you ain't gonna do much with these.
Well, unfortunately, it looks like we only got 4 points. But like I've said many times before, getting 4 points is much better than giving up 4 points. That's an 8-point swing, or even giving up 10 or more points. So let's look at the positives here and move forward to the next game. In this one, I ended up playing 2-2. There's only, let's see, there's two moves I'm guaranteed on the next round. What I'm really hoping for here is that my opponent plays a number that I have, a different number than 2, and I can get something to make some moves with. Alternatively, I think a strong move to start out might be to play this 5-4 here. If I had to do it over again, I might have played this instead. The reason being is there's a 1-4 here, there's 2 4s, there's 3 different 4s, and of course there's also one of the 5s. It's a 5-5. So there's a lot of different ways I can go with this on my second move. A lot more different ways I can go with that and get rid of a lot of points in the process in most of those moves as well. But hey, I played 2-2. All right, our opponent just played a 6 and a 5, and we fortunately have 2 5s there, so we're going to play that to keep that 5 option open. And unfortunately, our opponent has another 5, but that's okay because we can play the 0-4 here. And we're hoping our opponent does not play a 4, which they do, but fortunately they played a double 4, which is really good for us because we kept that lane open, and we take down some points here. Now, our AI opponent was smart in keeping his holdings down to something that's only worth 9 points. But hey, 9 points is better than nothing. We're up to 38-0. This is a grind a lot of the time when you play heads up, unless you can figure out way number 2 to win, where you get to showdown and you both have a bunch of tiles. Most of the time, it's a grind. I feel like in this one I have a really good start. I'm gonna get the one with the most amount of points here, and that's the 6-5. And the reason for that is, let's look at the 5s first. There's 1 here, and then 2 here. And now let's look at the 6s. We're going to put that in green. There's 1 6 right here. There's number 2 and number 3. So every tile except for this tile right here, this 1 0, we could basically play in the next turn. And we still have options. The 1 0 connects with a lot of the other tiles. Let's say, for example, there's a 1 right here, and there's a 0 right here. So there's a lot of different ways. Our tiles connect, and if we can keep 2 options open, we can have a really good game here. So let's see how this pans out. Here we make a really good blocking move, knowing our opponent doesn't have a 6. We force them to draw, and they get really lucky and draw 2 6s from the boneyard. That could have been a very, very strong move for us. Fortunately, we do have another 6 to move here, so we're going to play the 6-2 there. And we're down to 1 tile, not a lot of points, and we get really, really lucky. Domino! So we ended up getting 12 points there. Not enough to seal the game, but enough to get us up to 50 points, which is good for us. I kind of feel like our opponent got very lucky because we had him blocked off, and our opponent was able to get a miraculous draw. And like I said earlier, we had a really good block playing the 6-1 there, which basically forced our opponent to play a 6, which they didn't have. Our opponent had to draw from the boneyard, and our opponent gets a miraculous double 6. Had our opponent not done that, we're winning here. We're winning. The game's probably over because they're going to draw like a ton of tiles, and we're going to be able to domino probably fairly quickly. But unfortunately, it went the way it did. But fortunately, we are ahead 50-0. Now, this round in front of us right here is becoming a little bit of a challenge. Trying to keep the options open here. We've got the 0 option on the right, and our opponent takes it from us. But we do, fortunately, have 2 6s, which will get rid of 12 points. Kind of big for us. We don't want to give our opponent any momentum here should we not win this. Having this huge lead. There we go. Our opponent is drawing. It would be nice to end the game here. It's probably not going to happen here. Okay, we got a decent draw. Our opponent is drawing, and, okay, good. We got 1 left. Now, the question is, will our opponent draw a 5, or can we end it here? Odds are looking good. Odds are looking better. We've got 1 tile left.
That's good.
And, oops, opponent drew a 5. Now we got a draw. So we kind of had a little bit of bad luck there. We were hoping our opponent could draw the 1, which didn't happen there. But we had set everything up on this specific one for a big W to close it out. And, unfortunately, that didn't happen. But if you watch the setup on this round, I thought it was pretty good. It didn't go the way I'd like at the end, but it came down to our opponent drawing. And now we're just trying to see if we can break into this one here. Opponent has 2 tiles left, and let's see how that plays out. And we've got to move.
Domino.
We domino.
Nice.
Our opponent only has 1 tile left, though, so we're not going to get enough points here, most likely. Nope, we don't. We did get 6 points, however, so that puts us up to 56, meaning we just need 1 decent victory of 4 points or more, and the game is over. So let's see what we can do right here. All right, let's take a look at our holdings. And one of the things you're going to notice here is there's not a lot of strong chains. There are a lot of points, which is not good for us. Going to play the 4-5. Now, our opponent's going to play 5-1 here, which basically means we only have the 4-3 open. And that means we only have one lane open, assuming our opponent doesn't take the 3. And let's see what we got here. Oh, that's good for us. We can play the double 6. That's actually great for us. We get rid of some points and, keep our chances open here. Now we can play the 3s and running into some problems here. We don't have, looks like we're going to have to draw. That was one of the things I was worried about when I looked at this starting board here. You can't always have the best starting 7 tiles. You got to try to put together. You have to try to put together the best combination you can. You can't always do that, but you got to think strategically. Here we were dealt below average combos, and we're trying our best to work it through here. Looks like our opponent's going to win this match, though. We had 3 tiles left, worth 11 points. So that means our opponent is going to get 11 points. We are still ahead 56-11 here, and we only need 4 points to get to that target score of 60. Yeah, not the best. We did the best we could, given the tiles we had and having to draw. I feel fortunate to come out of there only giving up 11 points. So let's see how this next one pans out here. All right, we have 1-6 in front of us. We're going to play that, and we're going to hope that there's another option on the table here. We do have some 2s. 2 and a 1, that's really good for us. And there's going to be a lot of different ways we can play this. We have a lot of options on the table. We're going to play the 1 and the 4. Because we have 2 4s in our hands, and our opponent plays double 4s. That's not going to hurt us at all. We've got a lot of options here, and we're going to keep both lanes open here, or try to. Yep, we got the 0 and the 2 open. Opponent played a 6. Now we only have 1 lane open, but fortunately, yeah, this is going to be a tough one. I think I'm going to play the 4-2.
This is why we play.
We could be drawing shortly. Our opponent is drawing, and we're going to hope that we don't have to draw here. Our opponent draws again. That's good for us. We just need... oh, that's really good for us. Our opponent drew a 5. 6-5, that is. We play the 5-1. And we have the 1 and the 4 open now. Oh, that's really good for us. We got the 2-3 open. We're down to double 0. We just need a 0 to win it. And oh my gosh, our opponent puts a 0 down, and we are going to win right there. And that wraps up our domino draw. Heads up tips. I hope this helps out. Got gameplay and the key points I tried to stress. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for watching and wish you good luck in your play.